Hello everyone and welcome to this month blog. I'm Sonam Pandey, Research Development Officer in the Center of Stem Cell Research, a unit of Bangalore, Vellore, Christian Medical College, Tamil Nadu, and an active member of the SciRO leadership team. Many stem cell professionals want to make their career in transition after completion of PhD and postdoc. Research and grant management is the one of the attractive career option for such individuals. If you are one of them wants to know about research management, this blog is for you. Today blog is focused on the research management and administration, a career possibility. I would like to make opportunity to welcome to Dr. Savita Ayyar to our listeners. Dr. Savita Ayyar is the founder of Jacaré Tree on independent consultancy service supporting organization with their research management needs. Dr. Savita also received her initial training biochemistry at the University of Delhi and biochemistry at AIIMS New Delhi. She completed her doctoral work in the development biology at the University of Cambridge, UK, supported by the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust Fellowship. Fellowship, a period of postdoctoral research at the University of Cambridge, UK. She moved to the Wellcome Trust in London, UK. Following this, she is relocated to the India to initiate and nurture the activity of the Research Development Office at the National Science Centre, Biological Science Centre, Bangalore. In 2017, Dr. Ayyar set up her consultancy service Jacaré Tree. She currently works on behalf of academic institute, founder and other stakeholders on problems relating to research management. She is currently working on behalf of the Wellcome Trust, DBT India Alliance, develop IRMI, the India Research Management Initiative. Welcome, ma'am, for this blog. So, with this, I start my first question for our listener. Let's start with your sharing your academic and professional journey. You are an independent consultant and are also the lead of IRMI, the Indian Research Management Initiative. Please could you tell us about your journey and made some decide to choose research management as a career?
Thank you so much, Sonam, first of all, for having me here today, and thanks to SciRO as well. It's a pleasure to be here speaking about subjects very close to my heart, that's research management and science-related careers. So yes, as you've just shared with our audience today, I started my career as a scientist. I come from the world of life sciences. I was working on how genes pattern organisms, the different tissues in organisms, how this whole process unfolds so beautifully thanks to all of the information that is coded in the genome. And at some point, I decided to move to the Wellcome Trust, which is a funding agency. It is a very large biomedical research charity supporting research that helps human health and animal health. And actually, it's a broader view now. So working at the Wellcome was very different from being a scientist. I was introduced to what it meant to facilitate research through funding. What was the structure of a grant application? What is it that scientists had to write in their grant applications? How it was reviewed at the funding agency through committees? How the grants were managed? So all of these different kinds of fields, activities is what I learned at the Wellcome. And Sonam, you're familiar with this because you're in a very similar role now at CSCR, but you've also worked at a funding agency before your current role at an institution. So really, my time at the Wellcome was the first introduction for me to research management. There's a whole set of activities that are needed for enabling research. And then I moved to India. I set up the Research Development Office at NTBS in Bangalore. And like you, Sonam, I made this transition from working at a funding agency to working at an institution. So working on behalf of the management, on behalf of the faculty, in helping them to put together the best proposals to external funding agencies, helping to streamline all of those processes, helping to streamline the grant management, working with the finance team, and also with communicating the excitement of research that was getting funded through all of these different sources. And then finally in 2017, I set up an independent, my own consultancy firm. Why did I do that? Well, I think having worked at NCBS, I had interacted with other organizations and I realized that, well, first of all, India has an incredible diversity of organizations. There are research institutes, universities, NGOs, there are medical and paramedical science sort of research institutions. And I realized that, well, firstly, there wasn't much research management happening at those institutions in India. And secondly, that each of those institutions posed a different kind of challenge, a different kind of problem, which needed solutions. So the scientist in me kind of thought that, well, okay, maybe this is something interesting to work on. And as a consultant, I decided that I would work with different kinds of organizations at the earlier stages where there's a problem that needs to be analyzed, that needs to be solved, and something has to be built as a solution to that gap, right? So that was the challenge ahead of me with my consultancy service. And very fortuitously, of course, I had this wonderful opportunity to work with the DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance and build IRMI, the India Research Management Initiative. But we'll speak more about IRMI a bit later.
Yeah, ma'am. This is a good, I think, career. I think everybody have a, this kind of the pathway. Like me, also the same pathway I follow, and ultimately, I love this career, this management. Previously, I was also thinking that postdoc. I need a postdoc. I'm a hardcore researcher. I can't left that one, but slowly, I grabbed this, and I like this right now. Whatever current job profile is my. So with this, I come up my next question for listener. Would you like to shed some light on your consultancy service, Jacaranda Tea, and what was the motive to follow this pathway?
All right. So, so my consultancy firm is called Jacaranda Tree. I'm based in Bangalore, and there are these beautiful old trees in Bangalore, the Jacaranda trees with these lilac blossoms. And when I was at NCPS, my office overlooked this amazing Jacaranda tree. So, this one time in the year, you just have all of these beautiful flowers, lots of birds. And so for me, that was the motivation to pick the name because, so first of all, it was a reminder of my roots at NCBS. And then secondly, of course, there's just this whole idea that, the tree was providing this ecosystem. There was so much happening around the flowers and the tree. So my whole idea was that with Jacaranda Tree, I would like to work with the different stakeholders who make up the research ecosystem, right? So, who are those stakeholders? There's the academics, of course, they are the researchers, they are the wonderful individuals who come up with the ideas and who build these programs of research. But in order for them to do their work, they need institutions to be based at. So, there's the entire institutional support mechanism, whether that's the management or the administration. And then, of course, there are the funders who administer the funding that makes any of this research possible. And in actual fact, we can even go bigger than that. We can think of many other stakeholders who are part of who make our research ecosystem. So my idea was to look at research management problems, but from the lens of different stakeholders. So that was the motivation for Jacaranda Tree.
Nice. Actually, when I heard this name, so I also searching. So I saw that plant. It is very beautiful, and hope so. I will visit NCBS and look at that plant also. How it looks so beautiful.
Well, do visit when you visit Bangalore, and that if you visit sort of early summer, you cannot miss the jacaranda trees in Bangalore. There are just so many of them.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. So with this, we will come on my next question. What are the factors motivating you to work efficiently in your present role?
So I think one very important factor, sometimes I go back to this point that I am a scientist at heart. So for me, problem solving is very important. So as a consultant, I get to work on different kinds of problems, and that really kind of motivates me. I enjoy that process of speaking to people, of reading up, of just analyzing the factors and then identifying that, okay, fine, these could be the challenges, these could be the gaps, and so possibly this could be the solution. So I think it is that uh, quest of inquiry and those possibilities of how we can address those problems. That I think is one of the things that really motivates me. The second is, it's about research management as a profession. Research management is very people centric. It's about so many different kinds of individuals, so many different kinds of professionals. And I enjoy working with people. So I think that is the other thing that really makes me thrive, that, working with different kinds of individuals, seeing how their contributions, mesh and make the ecosystem work there. I enjoy that very much as well. The third aspect, of course, is because of me, I'm contributing very fortunately to building capacity for research management in India. So it's wonderful to see a younger generation of researchers and colleagues who are coming into the profession. And so there's a satisfaction that, well, if I can do something to help these individuals, then that's also very nice. It's nice to see the profession growing in India. So these are the three things I say that would really keep me centered as a consultant.
Yeah, ma'am, this is very motivative. I think our listener also listen and it will motivate them also. I think so. So let's come over our next question, that what is the research management and how did you prepare yourself to transition to research management, and does it require the specific qualification if you want to become a research manager or any research and grant manager like this?
Right. Thanks for that question, Sona. I think that's really important to understand and answer. I'll give you a small example. When I was a postdoc at Cambridge, we had a seminar series that we postdocs used to run. It was completely voluntary. We used to identify speakers, invite them, pay for them, all of that. My job was that of treasurer, so I had to raise funds for it. I had to ensure that we had funds available to pay our speakers. So this was, a small voluntary exercise, but through that we realized that no, keeping the funds coming in and ensuring that they are spent to serve the purpose of our seminar series, and that was a project, right? So I think if you expand that, you just that analogy you take and zoom out from there. Scientists need funding for their research. They have the ideas, they have the expertise to carry out these projects, but they require funding. And so research management really, if you look at the history of it, this has evolved in countries like the US and the UK many decades ago, when scientists and their institutions were under pressure to raise funds for research from every possible external source, right? So why is that a challenge? Because each funding agency has their own mandate. There are areas that they would like to fund. There are allowed procedures, disallowed procedures, allowed costs, disallowed costs. There are deadlines. There are very specific requirements in a grant proposal, and researchers may not have the time or the expertise to answer all of those questions in the short time period that the proposal needs to be submitted. Right? So they really do need help with all of these aspects while they're, for example, submitting their proposal. So what to apply for? How do I structure my budget? What can I request resources for? What is the funding agency policy on such and such matter? What goes into section 3A? I know how to answer section 4B, which is the science, but I'm not quite sure about other aspects. So it's a close partnership between a research manager and a researcher that can really help with the submission. And similarly, at the post-award stages, once the grant is active, there are a large number of details and papers and contributions from different departments that need to be followed through. There's annual reporting, it could be interim reporting, so it could be quarterly reporting. And really, I think if the scientist or researcher has to keep track of all of these details, it is very difficult for them.
Yeah.
So it is better that the institution provides this solid support system, the research managers, who can help with all of these aspects. So if we describe it very simply, research management are all of these activities which enable research, and the proposals and the management of grants, all of that, but without actually involving the conduct of the research, because that is left to the scientists, right? But you can broaden that further. So if you look at the research life cycle, it starts with the scientist or researcher having a good idea. They find the right funding opportunity. They put a proposal together, submit it, it gets activated. All of that is what is called the pre-award stages. Once it's awarded, that's the post-award, and the researchers keep track of expenditure, so buy equipment, hire staff, all of that, and share the reports to the funding agency from time to time. And at the end of this, of course, there are the research outputs, and research managers also play a very important role in managing research output information for their institution. So if there are 150 faculty, all of them with their grant funding, the research manager plays a role in tracking the information around outputs from those different projects. And again, if we kind of go way back, right at the start of the cycle, in fact, even before the funding opportunities are found and the proposals put together, sometimes a more strategic approach might be needed to build partnerships, which then lead to a successful grant proposal. So it might be, for example, an international partnership, or it might be academia industry partnership, or it might be partnership between different stakeholders. So you might have engineers working with doctors and other stakeholders, economists. So now normally engineers, doctors, and economists may not work together, but if there's some kind of a meeting that facilitates those conversations, then that's research management as well. And that's a very valuable role that helps all of these experts talk to each other and decide that, yes, this is something we can work on together, and then put in a funding. So I hope you've seen that even if you take the basic research life cycle, starting from finding funding all the way up to the reporting and the research outputs, there are several stages of that where expert support is required. And that support is really enabling for the PIs because it reduces their administrative burden. It leaves them time to focus a bit more on the research than they would otherwise have done. So that in a nutshell is research management. I'm sorry, it's been a rather long answer reaching this point.
Yeah, I understand that when we're talking, we have information, so we can give that one.
Yeah.
So that is very good and informative, ma'am. But as you know that management word is coming, so people are a little bit confused whether we need the management degree or the science person can also have a good opportunity for this career. So could you just explain what kind of specific qualification we have needed for this kind of the opportunity?
Right. So I think that's an excellent question. And if you look at the different areas of research management support, you might actually find that different kinds of qualifications or educational backgrounds might be helpful in the different parts of it. So where it involves research development or the pre-award, you might find more people who are from a research background because they understand the research process and they can converse with the researchers more comfortably. But equally, the post-award one has to be extremely meticulous and on top of things. That's where a lot of management is required. So we are now, for example, increasingly seeing people with MBA qualifications who are entering the profession as well. So, and on the other hand, agreements are crucial for all grant funding. So there you might need somebody from, with a legal background. So these are some of the areas that colleagues come in from. But at the same time, no, research management is fluid in that sense. So it depends on what the role is and what value addition the person can make.
Very informative. I think everybody have a clear cut answer that what kind of the people can manage this research like this. So with this, I will just come up my next question. After PhD and postdoc, most of us are struggling for the finding different career option we have. So do you have some suggestion for the listener who want to make similar transition for this career?
Absolutely. So I think first and foremost, it really requires you to decide yourself what is it that I am interested in, because each one of us is unique, uh, and we have different interests, we have different capabilities. So I think it's really important to listen to that. Science is not for everybody. Science communication may not be for everybody. Someone else might be incredibly well effective at managing processes, devising processes. So that, I think, is the first stop, which is what is it that really interests you? What is it that you really thrive on? So everything else kind of follows from there. So for example, if you enjoy writing, or if you enjoy watercolor painting and making illustrations, so then maybe that's a path for you that might involve either scientific writing or scientific illustration. That's just an example. Similarly, with research management, I think it's really important that you enjoy working with people, that you're very organized, that you have a problem solving mindset. That is really essential as well. So, these are some of the, I would say, the attributes of a research manager, and this is what helps people be successful. The second thing is, I would say that if you can get a small bit of experience, either through an internship or shadowing somebody, or like I did with being the budget manager for my seminar series, get a small taste of this level of responsibility and the steps that are involved, and then think about it. Is this working for me? So when I joined the Wellcome Trust, it was for a 1 year position. So I joined with a completely open mind, and I thought, okay, fine, this is a time for me to see, do I enjoy this kind of work, or am I going to miss science a lot? And in the end, I was very happy with what I was doing at the Wellcome. So that 1 year period was a great time for me to make that assessment that, okay, what aspects of this job do I like? What aspects of science did I like, which I miss? Or what is the balance? What do I see myself doing in future? So these are some of the considerations, and I think it's the answers have to come from within. That's very important.
Yeah, you are right, ma'am. If your heart and if your mind is set up with one kind of job and you are like love your job profession, so definitely you can fit for the any kind of the job, and there is no bother for the degree whatever you did or whatever you published. But right now where you are and you love that profession, then maybe you can go ahead. Right. Thank you, ma'am. So with this, we have come up to our next question for listener, that where one we can find this kind of job, research management in India.
So I'll talk about two sectors, Sonam, where one can find research management jobs. So one is obviously funding agencies. There are a lot of funding agencies supporting research in India, and they do advertise for intake. So it's worth keeping an eye out. So maybe follow them on Twitter, LinkedIn. That's a great way to learn about, some agencies advertise for a role. And like in my case, it was a 1 year opening at the Wellcome, but that was a great experience. And I thought, okay, fine, now I can think of making this a longer term career. So similarly, be on the lookout for opportunities like that. So funding agencies are great from another point of view, which is that you get hands-on experience with um, what does the funding cycle look like, how does the review process work, how do funding agencies work, what constraints do they operate under, and those learnings can then be applied in any other context. So I would say the funding agencies are a great place to find research management jobs. What has been a bit slow in India is obviously research management jobs at institutions, but that situation is changing now. So now institutions are creating research offices, and there you can get jobs as research managers. So in a way, it's the mirror image of what happens at funding agencies, but at the institutional central research office, A research manager would be helping all of the PIs and the management with whatever is required for raising funding from external sources. So these are two places one can look at. Information on jobs at institutions, that's a little bit harder to come by, obviously, because yes, if you're on social media and if you're plugged in, then you can see those. But we realized that this was a gap in India, and that's why through the IRMI initiative, actually, we curate information on jobs, research management jobs, with an emphasis on the institutions, and that is shared on LinkedIn. So you can follow the IRMI network on LinkedIn and get alerted about jobs as they come up.
Thank you, ma'am. Really, I'm also, when I was working in my previous organization, Gujarat Biotech Mission, so that time I'm working in the same thing, but I didn't know I'm working as a research manager. That time, because they gave a position name is research associate, so I don't understand that actually I'm doing the research management. And finally, when I received here that Center for Stem Cell, that time I realized that same work is here, but the scientific program manager is like this. So sometimes it is a difficult. We are managing the same thing, but through the designation we can't know. So with this, we have a difficulty to find out the different institute. But I right now I'm also follow the IRMI and so much funding agency. So now I can see the this kind of the job, and hope listener can listen also follow the same institute and they can got the more opportunity for like this. So with this, I know this IRMI have a good initiative, as name mentioned, that India Research Management Initiative. So now they are promoting research development office in every institute in India. So with this, I come up my next question. Can you give me some overview of the IRMI, India Research Management Initiative, and initiative of DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance?
Thank you, Sonam. So yeah, I mean, I think the whole IRMI conversation goes back possibly to 2015, 2016, when we started having discussions. There were a small number of institutions that had research offices, and people like me and my colleague Vandana Gambhir at ISIR Pune, we all used to get invited to different institutions to talk about our jobs. And we realized that, okay, there isn't much research management at institutions, right? So in 2018, by then I had become a consultant, so I took on this piece of work for the India Alliance. That was called the IRMI pilot, and that ran for 12 months. And as part of the IRMI pilot, Sonam, I interacted with about 30 institutions of different kinds all across India, just trying to understand from the institutional leadership perspective, the researcher perspective, and I used to ask whoever research managers are there at this institution, can you come and talk to me? So there were these three different voices I was mainly speaking to, but also sometimes the institutional administration like finance, procurement colleagues. But we realized that, okay, there were a lot of gaps in research management. And so at that point, the idea was that IRMI would aim to build capacity at three levels: at the level of the individual research manager, at the level of their institution, and at the level of the community. And now, community, before IRMI, actually, we didn't have a community of practice for research managers. We hardly knew who was at another institution in the same city. So when we started doing these little IRMI workshops, there were three workshops, one in Delhi, then one in Pune, and one in Bangalore. At that point, because I had been emailing people, emailing the institutional leadership, we finally saw small gatherings of research managers at these workshops. It was the first time we thought, oh, okay, so there are other institutions in this geographical area which have offices, which have research managers. So we realized that no, we do need to do something to build that community of research managers, so that as a collective, there's a community that we can share our experiences with, we can learn from each other, we can network, we can create opportunities together. So that was the concept of IRMI at these three levels: individual, institutional, and the community level. And so IRMI has been taken forward through enabling funding and through the community activities. So with the funding, there are actually three kinds of funding through the India Alliance. So there are RM fellowships, RM grants, and there are travel awards for research managers. So that research managers can, go abroad, they can attend an international conference in research management, they can see a different way of doing things. You can see, okay, fine, this is what happens in Europe, or this is what happens in Japan, and how does this affect my institution, or is there a new idea there which I want to bring back to my institution. So that's the idea of the travel award. And the RM fellowships are intended for institutions that are at very early stages of setting up their research office, and that needs a nominee, that needs a research management fellow who will take care of, who will develop this piece of work. The RM grants are for institutions that already have a research office, and they can apply for funding to boost their existing activities. So these are the three funding opportunities. But in addition to that, there's a whole bunch of things we've been doing around the community. So very simple, there is a registration form. So if there are research managers out there who are listening to our discussion today, please go on the India Alliance website. There's an IRMI webpage over there. There is a tab called Join the Network, and there's a registration form. So it's as simple as that. You can just fill out the registration form, and then you can be added to the mailing list, because we're looking for people in these kinds of roles so that we continue building the community, right? And so we've organized webinars, we've organized workshops, and in the recent past, we've been doing something called the coffee and conversation sessions. The idea behind the coffee and conversation sessions, these are informal sessions, but they're virtual gatherings. And we usually have some theme, but by and large, it's informal. But it's a great place for research managers to hang out with each other, to interact with each other. And finally, of course, there are the more structured opportunities for networking and for sharing of best practice. Those are the IRMI annual conference, and we have had 2 editions of that. Very well received. It was a huge amount of work organizing it for India for the first time ever in 2021, because we didn't have the knowledge of how to do it. We didn't know how many people would attend, how it would be received, etc. But it's been a great experience. And it's shown us that having those 2 conference editions has been a wonderful platform for our research manager community to showcase the work that they're doing. So, to summarize, IRMI is really about building capacity for research management in India at 3 different levels, and that's being taken forward through funding and community activities.
Thank you, ma'am, for this knowledgeable information for our listener. So with this I just come on my next question. Tell us about some fellowship setup. As already you informed that so much, but little bit more about our enemy initiative fellowship regarding the setup of RDO or RN office at the academic or scientific institutes.
Sure. So, I mean, the whole point of creating the RM fellowships was to promote the creation of research offices at Indian institutions. Why? Because during the pilot, when I interacted with institutional leadership, they had constraints. They sort of said, where will we find funding for hiring a person, for setting up the office? And so the RM fellowships provide a bit of funding which supports part of the fellow's salary. There's a training budget, and it's over 3 years. So the institution has 3 years in which to establish all of the processes. And then hopefully by the end of that period, there will be a longer term plan in place for recruiting that individual on a longer term basis. But what it also does is that at the core of the RM fellowships is an individual, that's the RM fellow, who's nominated to be the lead for this fellowship. So what we see is that it's best if the individual and the institution collaborate while writing the proposal, because they both have ideas on what can be done, what should be done. And then it provides a 3-year period for setting up a research office. And plus, the RM fellow is then mentored by me for 6 months and also is part of the IRMI network. So any opportunities that come up, a lot of that gets absorbed within. And also, if there are any recommendations for the career development of this fellow, then they can pursue that because they have a training budget as part of the fellowship. So this is a 3-year fellowship, and this is the RM fellowship scheme. So we've had some wonderful people getting supported through this initiative. They're building new careers in research management, and it's very exciting to see some of the work that they're starting to do. Just take an example. So we have Godwin Fernandez, who's at Sangat in Goa. And Godwin was among the first batch of RM fellows. And one of the first things he needed to do was to do a needs assessment, which is to understand what his department, what his organization required in terms of grant management. So Godwin ran a really nice needs assessment survey, and that has helped to inform their strategy for all the services that they're building. But what was also very nice was that Godwin presented the results of his survey at the IRMI conference. So he got to interact with Indian colleagues over all of that. He also went to Oslo, supported through an IRMI travel grant, and he presented his survey results in Oslo. And so he got feedback from European colleagues about his survey. So this is the kind of what these fellowships are intended to enable. That the goal is to create a research office that is working effectively, that is catering to the needs of the management, the faculty, the administration. It's centered around an individual who's providing the impetus to do all of this, and the individual is supported through their career development. So this is the concept of the fellowships.
Nice. It is really a good thought. If we have any example in front of, then we have a good enthusiasm to do this work. So thank you, ma'am, for this knowledge. Now we can come on our next question. Tell us about the IRMI network of the research manager, as you already mentioned one that person name. But what does the network do, and how does this contribute their professional development?
Yeah. So the first thing I always tell all the network members is please keep your LinkedIn profiles updated. So people know that you're a research manager, you're based at such and such institution, and if you interact with each other over any of the IRMI platforms, and it's easy enough to go back and connect with people you're interested in connecting with. So why do we need a community? Well, nobody likes to be alone. And I think any profession, if you've got a community of professionals that you're part of, there's a forum where you can, for example, ask simple questions that, I'm trying to do this, and does anyone have any suggestions? How do I tackle this situation? Have you had any experience with that? So you could get answers. The other thing is that, of course, you might have done a nice piece of work. Like we had Ponari Gotipati at LV Prasad Institute. She did a wonderful survey reviewing 3 years of operations at LV Prasad. So she set up the grants office over there. And so reviewing those operations, getting feedback from faculty, getting feedback from other colleagues at the institution to try and understand, okay, what value addition has this set of services made? What are the gaps? And what more do I need to do over here, right? So this is the kind of analysis which Ponari then presented at the IRMI annual conference. And this could be incredibly helpful for other research managers who are trying to do similar things at their own organizations. So this is where a community is really, really helpful, and I would say essential.
Nice. Yeah, you are very, if you have one group of the person who working the same field, so it will help to you to grow in your career like this, right? You are right, ma'am. This kind of the communication and community is needed for everyone. So with this, we have come up with our final question. Do you have any suggestion for our SciRO community? So what you would like to suggest to them?
I go back to being a scientist. I sort of say that I think one of the crucial determinants of success is be open to learning always. There is always something new to learn in any situation. So, read, listen to talks, webinars, etc., meet people, hear about what they're doing at their institutions. There's always a lot to learn and always a lot that one can adapt existing processes to. So, with that, I'll just say my best wishes to all the listeners and to you, Sonam.
Thank you, ma'am. So really, this was very lovely conversation, and I think my dream comes also true, ma'am, because I heard first name to you when I joined this institute, and really I want to meet you, but this is a good chance to meet with you on this my first blog actually. So with this, I thank you very much to Dr. Ayyar for sharing such valuable information and advice for our listeners, and it was a lovely conversation. If you want to any other question, you can contact to IRMI or Sayaro. We will definitely answer your question. And once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for this blog and meet with you.
Thank you so much, Sonam. Bye for now. Take care.
Bye.